G'day and welcome to NWR Communications Vantage Point Conference. Online, we now have Janus Electric. They're currently conducting private capital raising, which we can share details separate to this. But we've got the co-founder and CEO, Lex Forsyth, who will run through the presentation that's up on the screen. And post that, we'll get to a bunch of questions that will come through, no doubt. Lex, I'll hand it over to you to get started and we'll go from there.
Thanks, Simon, and thanks everyone for joining to find out a little bit more about Janus Electric. You've got a standard disclaimer at the front, which we can make available at the end, basically around a sophisticated investor. So we thought we'd give you a bit of a video overview of what Janus Electric is. So Janus Electric is an Australian-owned and manufacturing and engineering business that has created an exchangeable battery solution for Class 8 trucks. Right around Australia. We've got operations in South Australia, Victoria, New South Wales and Queensland with different fleets at different levels, towing different combinations. So we launched the world's heaviest electric truck in South Australia at 175 tonnes, towing a triple road train. And this is all with our patented exchangeable battery solution. So the key difference around our solution is we're taking trucks that are manufactured after 2010 and converting them from diesel to full electric by simply taking out the diesel engine and putting in our Janus conversion module that slips straight into the front of the existing vehicle. And then we put our exchangeable batteries on the side of the vehicle, which allows us to re-energize the vehicle in 4 minutes with a battery exchange, rather than the vehicle having to sit and plug in and wait to be charged. And this is one of the key things that is the major difference to the Janus Electric solution in comparison to the OEM is the exchangeable battery solution. Not only is it makes the operations and duty cycle for the fleet operator similar to a diesel truck, it also allows us to utilise renewable energy when it's in production. Our charge stations double as a battery energy storage system. And it is a very simple process. I think you would have just seen it on the video there of how the batteries exchange with a forklift. In less than 4 minutes. So in some circumstances, it's quicker than refueling a diesel truck. We also have another operation in Mount Gambier, which you'll see with Fennel Forestry, that's working in the green triangle. It's a double shifted B-double carrying logs out of the forest into the local sawmills. The key difference and the ability that she's been able to electrify that vehicle is because that vehicle's double shifted. It's a matter of just exchanging the batteries at the end of the shift, and the truck does the next shift. So getting over to the highlights, we founded the business in 2020. We've converted 8 trucks, covered over 55,000 kilometres and used about 78 megawatts or 78,000 kilowatt hours of electricity so far. The key thing to this is that it's been sort of 2.5 years of engineering and R&D, and basically the last 3 trucks have been delivered in the last 4 weeks of the business as we've grown and scaled the business into commercial operations and delivering customer trucks. We have got 130 plus contracted orders now for trucks around Australia, and obviously, you know, the highlights to the investment is the customer value proposition for the fleet owner is, you know, they're up to about a 65 cent a kilometre saving in high utilisation vehicles. We have a sustainable revenue model where we're not just selling an electric truck, we're also selling energy and battery hire, and we have an annuity style income from the Janus ecosystem, which I'll talk a little bit more about. The beauty of this is it's a highly scalable platform as well too. We're able to take the same technology and can put it through various models of OEM's trucks. Because it's scalable, this technology is also able to be used in an offshore market as an export market for the US and New Zealand, as most of the major fleets in those countries are using existing trucks that are the same as what's in Australia. So it's not just Australian orientated. We have limited competition in the area because we're one of the only manufacturers using an exchangeable battery solution that we know of at the moment. We also have the only serviceable electric vehicle battery that we know of in the market, where we're able to replace a cell if it fails in a battery, which enables us to have a greater life of the battery for use in the ecosystem. The other piece is we offer a turnkey solution. So we manufacture the batteries, the conversion module, and the charge stations, and we link that all together in our ecosystem software platform that controls all the transactions. So from a fleet operator's perspective, they only have one bill for their transactions for battery hire, energy, charge station requirements, and then obviously the usage fees that we charge. And the great part about our solution is we're able to help transition to a renewable economy by using off-peak charging and also when renewables are in production, because with our charge stations, we're able to fluctuate when we push and pull power from the grid from our charge stations. To give you a bit of a high-level overview, if you were to look at where the business would be in 10 years' time, we're looking at a target of about 10% of the Australian market of our Class 8 trucks, which is about 13,000 trucks by 2034, and we have a plan to be able to transition to that and grow the manufacturing to be able to meet that requirement. As you can see, there's substantial revenues, but also the battery capacity of what we have is quite substantial as a battery storage energy system. That is, in most cases, we're 3 times the size of the installed and planned to be installed batteries in Australia. So we can talk a little bit more about that in further slides. To look at the operating model of the business, there's 2 parts to our business. There's a manufacturing business that builds the conversion modules, the batteries, and the charge and change stations, and also does the conversion to vehicles. We also have a dealership network that we've brought online to do the conversion, so we're able to ship out kits to dealers around Australia for them to be able to convert the vehicles in their existing states rather than bringing everything into the factory. We also then have our software platform, which we call the Janus ecosystem, which is a asset utilization and verification system. So it protects the assets that are in the ecosystem, and what it basically does is it authenticates a battery to a truck and a battery to a charge station, so that you just can't put any battery into any vehicle or charge station. It's got to be part of the Janus ecosystem. This also manages all the transactions between all parties, and where Janus takes a fee for managing those transactions, or a small percentage of each transaction that happens. And the other part of this is it also optimizes energy consumption for the fleets and tracks the vehicles in real time, giving fleet operators greater access and notification of what their fleet is doing from an energy point of view. When you look at the infrastructure components of the business and how we do it, there's obviously the conversion module, which is, if you essentially think of that as a crate motor that we put directly into the vehicle. It contains the transmission and electric motor that we couple together, and then it also has the top plate, which has all the ancillary systems on it that are required by a truck to operate. So an air compressor, a water pump, air conditioning, and power steering pump as a complete kit that can drop directly into where the diesel engine comes out of on the existing prime mover. The side batteries also are a universal battery that fits on most makes and models of trucks in Australia. And the great thing about trucks is they're all manufactured to a standard. So if you look at the distance of the chassis rails, the width, the distance between the chassis rails on any Class 8 truck, they vary only by about 3 millimeters. And this is to allow many manufacturers to supply componentry into that market. So what we've created is an exchangeable battery system that can work on all OEMs platforms. What the two-side batteries give us is 620 kilowatt hours of electricity, which allows for about 400 to 600 kilometers range for that vehicle. So depending on how far that vehicle's traveling and routes and the duty cycle of that vehicle determines where we place the charging networks. The other part to our business is the Janus charge and change stations. This is where we basically they're in a 20-foot shipping container. We simply just slot the batteries in. You can see the image of what the charge station looks like there at the bottom. But the difference between our charge stations is they also double as a battery energy storage system. So we can go grid to battery, battery to battery within the charge station to fast fill batteries, and then also go battery back to grid with an inverter that we have in the charge stations. This allows us to be able to also look and take advantage of wholesale pricing markets and those sorts of things when we're procuring energy. The key to this is all managed through our ecosystem software platform. You're able to see where we've got trucks, batteries, and charge stations located around the country. But what that allows us to do is optimize charging and fleet performance. because we're understanding where the trucks are traveling and what energy they're using, we're able to optimize when we take charge, when it makes the most efficient sense to do that. The other thing the software does is it also manages the battery health. So we're managing the battery level down to a cell level, and can see very clearly what batteries are doing within the network. We do performance analysis both on the batteries, truck and charge stations. That allows for constant update and constant refinement of the code that's in the vehicles and the batteries to get the best efficient use of those assets. And the key to this is also the asset utilization and verification. So making sure that it is a Janus approved battery, truck or charge station that is being utilized in the network. So it protects our market and our and puts a barrier to entry for other people coming into the market. The biggest customer valuation, so for our fleet's point of view, this is a study that we did for a high utilization vehicle. This vehicle is typically traveling around 265,000 kilometres a year, sorry, 286,000 kilometres a year. They're looking at about a 10-month payback in savings on their diesel bill and maintenance bill over the period of doing the conversion. So there is a high or a quick payback for a vehicle being converted for a fleet, and it makes sense in comparison to what OEMs are charging for the new battery electric vehicles to do a conversion. They're getting 4 conversions for the price of one new OEM or Volvo prime mover is the only electric prime mover that's available in Australia at the moment, and they're retailing at about $750,000 to $800,000. And you have all the issues with fast charging and having a charging network infrastructure to be able to support that vehicle, whereas our solution gives them a turnkey operation with a very quick payback on their existing asset. The other benefits for the trucking operators obviously is the value that they get from the savings, but also meeting their customers' requirements. We're getting a lot of fleets whose customers are coming to us. So we've had Coles, Bunnings, Woolworths. One of our partnerships with Oz Mineral and BHP is all been around driving down Scope 1, Scope 2 and Scope 3 emissions. And one of the issues that the fleets are having at the moment is the OEMs haven't provided them with a solution to meet their customers' expectations on when they will hit their greenhouse gas emission targets. So what we've enabled fleets to do is actually have a clear pathway and able to demonstrate to their customers to the point where their customers are now bringing them along, and we're doing a lot of tripartite agreements where we're involving the customer and the fleet operator in the same agreement by utilising different site locations of a customer's. With our Bunnings trial, we're looking at potentially rooftop solar on their major distribution centre here in Queensland, where we can electrify their semi-trailer fleet that is operating and delivering hardware out to all of the stores. The other operational benefits for electrification is obviously quieter trucks, reduced maintenance, greater performance and improvement of the vehicle from an acceleration and torque point perspective because it is superior to diesel. Also improved driver health, that you haven't got drivers exposed to noise, heat, fumes, and helps reduce fatigue for the operator as well too. The other side of it is you're not doing a B service where you're changing oil and fuel filters and air cleaners on the engine. There's none of that servicing requirement on the vehicle. And the other piece is the energy markets opportunity, where our charge stations can be put behind the meter if there's rooftop solar or wind available, but it also allows them to have fixed power purchase agreements where we can map a power price for them for the next 12 months, 24 months or 36 months so that they have consistency around what their energy charge is going to be. So it allows them to really forecast what their cost is going to be and turn a variable cost of diesel into a fixed cost by electrifying with a PPA agreement attached to it. To give everyone a bit of an overview of what emission standards, what transport represents as an emissions. In Australia, it's about 17% of all of our emissions come from the transport sector. If we were to decarbonise all of the trucks in Australia, or we were to convert all of the trucks in Australia, it's about the equivalent of removing about 30 million cars off the road. For each truck that we convert, it's the equivalent of 30 cars worth of emissions. So if you look at a bang for buck for a government to invest and say, look, how can we reduce emissions in Australia quickly and get some real short-term gains? It creates a clear path for governments. And one of our customers in Victoria Cement Australia have done a partnership with the state government. We're rolling out 7 trucks in Port Melbourne down there for Cement Australia to deliver cement, powdered cement out of their cement berth to 6 locations around Melbourne CBD within about a 25-kilometre radius. And this is just a way of demonstrating of how they can get emissions targets met sooner and put pressure on other transport operators to do their conversions. We spoke earlier about battery storage. For the future of energy storage, you can see, I think the biggest thing to look at is the graph down in the bottom. With 10% of the market by 2034, you can see that the Janus Electric battery fleet is significantly larger than all of the planned and installed batteries that are currently planned for Australia at this point in time. I think that if you can understand, we're not just a truck conversion business. It is also about being a battery energy storage system and solution that can utilise the power grid to have efficient gains of being able to store energy and supply energy back and forth in between the grid and get maximum utilisation out of a battery asset that's not reliant on the grid for a revenue event, because trucks continuously move and always have a demand for energy. Just to give you a bit of an idea of our customer base here in Australia at the moment, obviously Fennel Forestry is in Mount Gambier. We have a triple road train with Cube down in Port Augusta working for Oz Minerals, carrying copper concentrate out of Carrapateena into Whyalla Port. That vehicle is about to go into operations in the next 2 weeks. It's just going through its final permitting stages with the South Australian government. As I mentioned, we've got Cement Australia in Port Melbourne that will end up with 7 trucks operating out of there. We also have New Cold in Melbourne that's looking at grocery deliveries out of their cold storage facility. And these are some of the fixed orders that we have. So we're in excess now of over 130 orders, but these are the highlights of the larger orders that we have in the business right at this point in time. There is also an order pipeline of significant numbers with other fleets that are coming through, and we can see some of those fleets are known fleets that are operating around Australia. So what does the competitive landscape look like for Janus? We're one of the only companies in the world with this technology to convert, and also moving away from a fixed battery asset going to an exchangeable solutions. That helps overcome some of the shortcomings of fast charging. People think that you can fast charge trucks. It's not really a possibility, and what's not being said is the damage that does to batteries. By constantly fast charging, the OEM's product will diminish its battery life very quickly. The other side of it is the standard charging for fixed batteries, it's about having a standard. There's not a current standard for most of the trucks that is there at the moment. And the problem you've got is you've got a lot of fleets are wanting to utilise their vehicles 24 hours a day. If you're losing 3 to 4 hours to charge that vehicle every shift, essentially you've taken away 1/3 of the truck's operational capacity in a 24-hour process. So it becomes very difficult for fleets, especially if you're looking at fleets where there's 100 trucks in one yard. How do they provide a charging infrastructure to do that? The other side of it too is first mover advantage for our fleets. They're able to introduce this solution and be available for their customers for their emission standards that they're working with. The other side of our batteries as well is the technology. We're agnostic to cell technology. If there's new cell chemistry that comes out that increases our energy density, we just put it in the box. We're not tied to any one particular cell. We're able to take in different cells, and we simply just put it in the box, which is the Janus side battery. The other part of it is obviously it's adaptable. Our solution is adaptable. Most Class 8 trucks around the world, and Australia is a great proving ground for that because we have a 50-50 split between bonneted trucks and cab over vehicles. If you look at the US market, 95% of their market is bonneted trucks. If you look at the European markets, nearly 95% of the European market is all cab over prime movers. So Australia is a great proving ground for us to prove and put serious quantities of these trucks on the ground. I'd like to throw back to Simon and just thank everyone. And if there's any questions, we're happy to run through any of those questions.
Perfect. Thanks, Lex. Let me just get up the questions that have come through. Of the 125 plus orders confirmed, what's the type of these key customers and how lumpy are these orders?
Yeah, so they're spread over about 16 customers. There is a couple of bigger orders in there where there's 50 from one fleet in Simmons Clark in South Australia, but most of it's spread over about 15 to 16 customers. We've got some orders coming in from Wholesome and Boral as well. So they're blue chip and your medium-sized transport operator that is ordering vehicles from us.
And who funds and builds the installation of the charge stations?
So Janus is currently funding that and building that as part of its process, and that's why we're doing the capital raise, is to raise funds to help with the rollout of further sites.
And in terms of a go forward basis, is that the sort of model as you sort of scale up, or is it more so license out or lease back? What does that sort of look like?
Look, there's some opportunity there for franchising of charge stations. We've had different service providers to the transport industry, such as tyre services, maintenance facilities, and existing truck stop networks that are looking at installing our charge stations in their locations and looking at operating that. So the beauty around the ecosystem software platform is we're able to then take a smaller margin on the kilowatt hours that flow through each of those assets. And then sell the charge stations into different providers that are looking at providing a network solution to fleets.
Like all EVs, consumers are still suffering from range anxiety. Can you comment on this with respect to your solution? And is this amplified for trucks that are best under heavy load, etc.?
Yeah, no, the range anxiety goes away because you can swap the battery in 4 minutes. So obviously when we're doing the analysis with the fleets, we're looking at where the fleets are operating. So if you look at the B-double in Mount Gambier, it runs 24 hours a day. It uses a battery on day shift and a battery on night shift. We're not trying to electrify everywhere in Australia at the moment. We're doing key locations. So stage one is a Brisbane to Sydney, but we've got 7 locations that are working at the moment with point-to-point operations or back-to-base scenarios. And the thing the fleets like about it is that they can just come straight in, they swap the battery, and the vehicle keeps going. So it removes all that range anxiety because we're putting it into known and planned freight routes.
Perfect. And just in terms of the capital required to convert the trucks, can you just run through that and how this would differ to installing new machines?
Yeah, so we charge $175,000 for the fleet operator to convert their vehicle. They typically get about $25,000 back for all the gear that we take out of the truck, so the diesel engine, the fuel tank, and the transmission. So it looks at it's roughly a net cost of about $150,000. We make a small margin on the conversion, but where we make our greater margin is on the provision of energy, the battery hire that we charge for the fleet operator, and then we also charge a usage fee for every kilowatt hour that flows through the motor on the vehicle.
And just in terms of, obviously, it's reasonably topical in terms of government funding and the support with regards to green and whatnot. What does that sort of look like out there in terms of government contributions or potential funding over the next couple of years sort of thing?
Yeah, so currently we've got a grant in process with ARENA at the moment to fund our first robotic charge and change station. We haven't had any grants from any state governments or federal government at this point into the business. And I think that's due to the age of the business only being 3 years of age and sort of still establishing itself. But I'm sure as we start to scale and grow manufacturing, that will attract something either from a New South Wales state government or on a federal basis as well too.
Great, thanks. And just in, obviously, if you did want to know more in terms of capital raising, reach out to us and we can connect. But can you just talk us through the fundraising history to date?
Yeah, so we've basically raised just under $11 million so far from inception. And that's been used in R&D, battery manufacture, and rolling out the existing charge and change station network. And that's been a mixture of co-founders funds and also we're a non-listed public company at the moment with about 80 shareholders on the register. And that's what we've raised so far to date. This current raise, we're looking for 12 million, which will fund us through for the next 12 months. Where we'll look to go into a greater raise or potentially look at other options of capital raising.
It's a pretty significant effort in terms of what you've demonstrated, just from $11 million to date.
Yeah, I mean, we're a very nimble team. We employ about 50 people. now as we're scaling into manufacturing. And, you know, the beauty of it is my background is transport and logistics, so I understand trucks and refueling and what the transport industry is looking for. And my other co-founder is a mechanical engineer by trade. So we've been able to bring those two knowledge sources together to build something that is actually practical and a solution for the transport industry here and now and into the future.
Awesome, Lex, that's all we've got time for. Well done on what you've contributed to date in terms of just from 11 million bucks. If people did want to know more in terms of capital raising, just reach out to us and we can connect. But it's a fascinating story and completely in the right space. Thanks very much, Lex.
Thank you, Simon. Appreciate it.
Cheers, guys.